What's up guys, Diego here from ProNDC. Welcome to another ESO build video. Today I'm going to show you the Magicka Dragonknight for the Morrowind update. People have been asking me for a build update for this class in particular for quite a long time, so I can finally show it to you because I was donated the set that I was missing by Marfon, one of my viewers, so thanks a lot for donating the set. Yeah, I won't show you a DPS test in this video this time because I'm just not as good on this class anymore as in the last couple patches because I hardly played. We have much better Magicka players in my teams that deal much more damage than I do, even though I think I get the rotation down pretty good. But I will put a link in the video description that you really need to check out because it's from Panadulek. He is a player from Hodor. He is probably one of the best Magicka DKs we have on the server, probably the best Magicka DK, and you really need to check out his DPS test. He's able to achieve great numbers even just with Elemental Drain. The only DPS tests that I have recorded are with Off Balance and Minor Vulnerability. I did like 40 something K, like 40.5k DPS, I think, if I remember correctly. And Pandulek is able to get really close to that, like around like I think 38.3k, or he showed me DPS screenshot of 37.8k just with Elemental Drain. So you can get really close to my numbers with just Drain as a buff. That's really awesome. Anyway, I will show you different versions of these setups depending on how much sustain you need. So I'm going to show you what you can change in your setup to get more sustain. I will start, of course, with the stats. So these are the current stats that we have with max Magicka and max health food. I have a precise staff on the front bar. Sharpened would be best in slot. That's why like my spell crit is a little bit higher than it should be. However, yeah, I'm not lucky enough to get, you can see it's the Maelstrom staff, Maelstrom Inferno staff. I don't have it in sharpened yet, and it's really bothering me. However, with the precise Maelstrom Inferno staff, I was able to get more DPS, even though I did not put more points into spell erosion. I got more DPS than with the Moondancer staff in sharpened on the front bar, which is really weird. Probably it's because of the new CP system, but I will get to that when I talk about champion points. So this is like full damage, like the most damage you can get. I'm wearing 5 light, 1 heavy, 1 medium to get the maximum of the Undaunted passives. I have all points into Magicka. I'm still sitting at 18.5k health, which is pretty good. Just 709 Magicka recovery unbuffed and almost 2.2k spell damage buffed. Fully buffed with a potion, it looks like this. So we just have 812 Magicka recovery, really low, and 2.6k spell damage, which is actually a bit higher because of the set that we are wearing. I will show you right now, it's Silks of the Sun, as you can see, like that's why we have such high health. Like almost 42.7k max Magicka, which is also pretty high. Not sure what I should. Yeah, okay. I will show you first, of course, what you could do for a bit more sustain. So what you have the option, like I'm wearing, of course, Moondancer, to go with 1 recovery piece. That way, your buffed recovery will be 1080, and your buffed spell damage 2400. Of course, a little bit more because of Silks of the Sun. I will show you the set bonuses in a second. So to get a little bit more sustain, you can put 1 recovery piece, or recovery glyph on your jewelry, or maybe even 2. That way your recovery will be a little bit higher, and you can still play with this food. However, I actually only recommend this food if you play with a different set, which is Burning Spellwave. I will talk a bit about this set in a couple of minutes. When I talk about gear in detail. Burning Spellwave, as you can see, compared to the Sunset, doesn't give you max health. So if you change your buff food to this one here, to Witch Mother's Potent Brew, you will have like 15.2k health, something like that. It's really low, and you need to at least get to 16.5k health to be able to play in a trial. Even that is a little bit low. But anyway, Witch Mother's Potent Brew gives you max Magicka, about 3.2k, 3.5k max health, and 320 Magicka recovery. So we use that food now. You can see like we're sitting exactly at 16.5k health, 40.5k max Magicka, so we lost about 2k on both these stats, but we have 1.3k magic recovery. Pardon me, I forgot to switch one ring. So we have 1149 recovery, which is higher, unbuffed higher than with the other setup buffed. So when we drink a potion, we're sitting at 1.3k recovery right now, with still 2.6k spell damage. We just lost about 2k max Magicka, but we have tons of more recovery. So that should help tremendously with sustain, of course. You don't need really much more sustain than that. If you still need more sustain, you can bump up the recovery by going 7 light. I will just switch up the monster set here, because I get a little bit more health like that. So I'm sitting at 16.8k and 37,700. And I have a little bit more magic recovery, but I'm wearing 7 light, so I get more cost reduction because I wear more light armor pieces. If you think that's a little bit overkill, you can go, of course, with 1 heavy piece to get a little bit more health. However, I forgot to put a Magicka enchantment here. That's why my health is a little bit lower. Like, usually it should be like 17.4k or 17.5k, and I think like 38.1, 38.2k with with buffed, also around like 1.3k magic recovery. So if you think like 7 light is a little bit too much, you can go with 6-1. However, I really recommend to go with Vulcan Scoria instead of the Grothdar set, because you get more health, whereas from Grothdar you get max Magicka. But enough for stats. These are the options that you have, so I recommend to go with this food in the new trial and Halls of Fabrication, because there's a lot of mechanics that drain your Magicka, and you really need that recovery to fill up the Magicka when you get like stunned by certain mechanics and stuff like that. So really important. Gear wise, so the setup that I usually wear is this. Okay, sets are fine. So I'm usually using Witch Mother's Potent Brew. Then I use Grothdar. Of course, everything in Divines. Grothdar for max Magicka. Medium armor piece here, heavy armor piece there. When you deal damage, you have a 10% chance to summon that lava pool, which deals a lot of AoE damage. DPS wise, compared to Vulcan Scoria, which gives us health, it's about the same. Single target wise, Grothdar will outperform AoE wise, of course, but like Vulcan Scoria is still really strong. If you need the health and you don't care a lot about AoE damage, go with Vulcan Scoria. You can also, of course, wear 5-on-1 with Vulcan Scoria, solely up to you. So you get a little bit more health and you don't drop too much max Magicka. Then Silks of the Sun. So it's really nice because we get a health bonus here, and we get max Magicka, spell damage, and of course 400 spell damage for all our flame damage abilities, which, if you look at the bars, basically everything is flame damage. So we have flame damage here, 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 and this is the only ability that doesn't do flame damage. And of course our light attacks on the front bar, on the back we have lightning stuff, but the flame stuff lightning attacks deal flame damage. So basically everything gets boosted by Silks of the Sun. And also, like, a lot of people got this wrong. They thought like it's flat out 4 spell damage, and it does not get affected by Major Sorcery from our potions. So we use Spell Power Potions to get Major Sorcery, 20% more spell damage. And Major Prophecies or Spell Crit, which we actually don't need because we have Inner Light, and we get back Magicka. But it does. It gets affected by major and minor sorcery, and that's why it's a ton of spell damage that we get here. It's not that much less or that much more than Burning Spellweave, which I will show you here. So this is the set that we used to use. You can still use that, like in old trials, Burning Spellweave. If you don't have Silks of the Sun and Divines and Gold, just stick with Burning Spellweave. I wouldn't wear it in Halls of Fabrication because you need to move a lot and you have a poor uptime on Burning Spellweave. However, in the old trials where you know all the tactics, know all the mechanics, you can still use that. On my target skeleton tests, my uptime was between 58% to 66%. Yeah, that's true. Like, I checked it in Combat Metrics. I'm not sure if that's right, to be honest. Combat Metrics showed me a couple of tests where I had like 65 and 66% uptime on this set bonus. So like the 5-piece bonus is when you deal damage with a flame ability, you have a 15% chance to get 525 spell damage for 8 seconds with a 12-second cooldown. So like when it procs, the 12 seconds start, but you still have like the 8-second duration of more spell damage. So the maximum uptime is 66%, which I was able to get on this DK. On every other class than Magicka Dragonknight, Burning Spellweave is complete crap. Trust me. Like, I've tested it and I had like 40%, 30-something percent uptimes on Magicka Nightblade, on Sorg. It's not worth it. Trust me, don't run Burning Spellweave on any other class than Magicka Dragonknight. You can use Burning Spellweave with different traits in PvP for huge burst, of course. It's still really good in PvP if you really want to burst people. For example, on Magicka Templar, if you can set up a combo with like a Reflective Light or Vampire's Bane and Purifying Light, like stun the opponent with Meteor or Dawnbreaker and then execute with Radiant Destruction, that's really good. You can still use Burning Spellweave for fights like that. But for PvE, only use it on Magicka DK. And because it doesn't have health, I really only recommend to use it with Melon Bake, like, not with this particular buff food, but with max health, max Magicka food. Because like, when I wear that, I can just put it on to show it to you. I'm sitting at 15.1k health. Shouldn't we be more? No. 15.1k health. That's basically nothing. So you need to put so much more points into health. You lose out a little bit more max Magicka, and then you end up with less damage compared to Silks of the Sun. But in all trials, if you have a really good off-balance uptime, Burning Spellweave will still work pretty fine. Why off-balance? I will get to that in a couple seconds or a couple minutes. So this is the set pieces that we wear on the body. Wait, if you don't have Burning Spellweave, so if you don't want to farm that because it's not as good as it used to be, and if you don't have Silks of the Sun because it's not important, it's expensive as hell. I'm poor, so I wasn't able to afford it. I get this donated from one of my viewers. If you can't afford that and if you don't want to farm it, you can just go with regular Julianos. Love Julianos will give you about 300 spell damage, more spell crit, and max Magicka. It's not that far behind those two sets, so you can use Julianos. Yeah. And then you can also use Scathing Mage. It only procs off of direct attacks, but it doesn't have a cooldown. And you can get a decent uptime on DK, but not as good as with Burning Spellweave, and it's not as good as Silks of the Sun, of course. So these are your options for sets on the Magicka Dragonknight for the 5 body pieces. Then we have jewelry, 3 Moondancer pieces, of course, with our spell damage here, because we were using Witch Mothers. So we have enough recovery. If you still struggle with recovery, just get one recovery, one ring with recovery glyph on it and put it somewhere. Then we have a Moondancer Inferno Staff, and like I said at the beginning of the video, even my Precise Staff outperformed my Moondancer Inferno Staff and Sharpen on the front bar. I don't know why it's that much. Like, apparently this enchantment makes your light attacks so strong that they deal about like, I don't know, like 6 to 7k or even more in trials, of course, of single target DPS, your flame staff light attacks, only because of that enchantment. You don't get that with the Moondancer staff, though you have more penetration, of course, with sharpened. So the best and slot option would be to go with a sharpened Maelstrom Inferno staff. If you don't have that, try to get a Moondancer staff. If you don't have those, wear one Moondancer body piece and get Silks of the Sun staves. You can buy these, or you can farm these. Get a Inferno staff for the front bar and a Lightning star for the back bar. And you can use that. You can put the enchantments on the staves like how you want it. So the 2 enchantments that I recommend if you don't have a Maelstrom staff are a flame damage enchantment, which is right here. It's 3.5k flame damage, but I think that's buffed. Let me check for a sec. That's a bit weird. So it's a flame damage enchantment. It should only be 3.2k, and on the other staff put a weapon damage enchantment, but that only lasts for 5 seconds. So you might be able to get more damage with a flame damage enchantment on the front bar. That's what I experienced on different classes. Flame damage enchantment on the front bar was better than the weapon damage enchantment on the back bar, or the weapon damage enchantment on the front bar. That's why I put it on the back bar. Yeah, that's like the options that you have. If you don't have, of course, Moondancer jewelry, you can just go with willpower or infallible ether. And if you use willpower, use random staves. It's completely up to you. I think you could also go with the old route, like use infallible ether, like two body pieces. You'd have to go 7 light, of course, like 2 body pieces, 1 jewelry, and then go like with willpower, 2 jewelry pieces and 2 staves. It's up to you. Like, that's really old school. I used to play that for a while, and I got really good damage out of that back then. But I think like AoE wise, the monster stats will outperform that setup. Anyway, enough for gear. Let's talk about skills. So for skills, I use the Flame Lash here. And this is the reason why we need a good, like a decent uptime for off balance. Yes, Flame Lash will take away off balance, because you can like read here, like targeting an off balance enemy changes this ability into a Power Lash. This morph heals you, and it deals some extra damage. However, because you're actually like supposed to knock down the opponent, you take away the off balance. In a good trial, we have enough lightning damage and enough blockades of storms down to get a good off-balance uptime. Like good, don't quote me on that. In this patch, like 60%, 50 to 60% off-balance uptime is considered good, because we have so many people doing heavy attacks, which also take away off-balance, and of course, like this Flame Lash, that the off-balance uptime won't be as high, but it's still high enough to get a bit more extra damage compared to the other morph. Because the Molten Whip gives you extra spell damage on all your flame damage abilities where it's active, so on these other 3. And you are able to like compensate that damage, and you get more sustain, because this Power Lash is a free cast. You don't use up Magicka because of that ability, which is pretty nice. So we use this morph now. Mine is not morphed, so I'm losing some damage, and I think it also costs a little bit more. I'm not sure. Then we have Engulfing Flames here. This is one of our single target dots. We apply this mainly not just because it's a good dot, but mainly because the enemy gets 10% more flame damage. So you want at least like 1 Magicka decay in a group because of this ability, because the enemy will take 10% more flame damage from every source, not just from you, but from all other players. And there's a lot of fire damage in a trials group, so this ability is really important. Then we have Blockade of Fire, which activates, of course, the Maelstrom enchantment. And burning enemies take 10% more damage from this ability. It's really strong, really good AoE. We need that. We need to recast it as soon as possible. Then we have Burning Embers. Pretty low cost, just 1.2k, really good dot, and also heals us for 75% of the total damage inflicted, which is pretty nice. Then we have two abilities that we hardly use, like Inner Light, and then we have here Shooting Star. Those abilities are on our bar because of the major skill passive, which is Magicka Controller. So we get 5% from this ability, and then because we have two major skill abilities slotted, we get 4% extra, which is pretty nice. On the back bar we also have Inner Light, because we don't have any other ability right now that we might want to slot here. Like, depending on the trial, you might want to slot the chains, or maybe even talents, like, I don't know, or maybe inhale, but we hardly use that. Like in VMall, at some points you want to slot the chains, but that's basically it. Then we have Rearming Trap. This gives us minor force, 10% more crit damage, and it has a total of 15 seconds duration, so 1.5 seconds until it gets ready, 6-second duration, and then another 1.5 seconds, and then again 6 seconds. So it's 15 seconds on total. And on this back bar we have all our long-term dots. So this is 15 seconds, this is 18, we a little bit of overcasted, and this is 15 again. So yeah, we have Eruption here now, 18 seconds, AoE, damage over time, pretty simple, pretty good dot. Then we have Flames of Oblivion, which also lasts 15 seconds, but only inflicts damage every 5 seconds, but it's a lot of flame damage. And it's really strong. We always activate that before we go back to our front bar. Then we have our shield here, which is Harness Magicka, the only shield that we have. I like this shield a little bit better than Damping Magic, because shields are really expensive this patch because we don't have any more cost reduction. And that's why I like Harness Magicka, because if I get attacked by someone with magic damage or elemental damage, I restore Magicka, and that's really good. Damping Magic is a bigger shield, but it still only lasts like 6 seconds, so I really don't need it. Then we have our Standard of Might. This is our main ultimate that we use. We get 15% more damage, 15% less damage taken, and it deals AoE flame dot damage, which is really nice. And allies can also activate their synergy, which is also pretty nice if they were like Moon Dancer, stuff like that. That's really good, but it's extremely expensive. And yeah, on a target skeleton we're not able to use Standard of Might 2 times, because it's like we don't get a lot of ultimate on our DK, and it's really that expensive. So what things can you switch, or what should you pay attention to? Like, as you can see, like, I have the lightning staff, the Moon Dancer lightning staff on the back bar. Reason for that is pretty simple. We can do lightning staff heavy attacks to get back resources from distance, so we're not forced to be melee in certain situations, which is nice, especially in Halls of Fabrication. And then also, while we're on the back bar, abilities like these deal 8% more damage, because we have a passive Destruction Staff, and it's this one here, Ancient Knowledge. While we have Destruction Staff ability slotted, which we of course don't have here right now. Don't have here right now. I personally wouldn't do that in the boss side. Destruction Staff. While we have that slotted, Lightning Staves increase the damage done with area of effect abilities by 8%. So you could, if you want to go ranged at some points, because you feel a little bit, well, how would you put it? Oh, I want more of that. You feel like you die too much in melee range and you want to stay ranged at some points. You could take out Inner Light, keep Flames of Oblivion because we still have the Major Prophecy, and slot a Destruction Staff ability for a shock. At some points, maybe first boss in Halls of Fabrication, you want to interrupt these spheres, You can use Crushing Shock. However, for more damage, go with Force Pulse. I won't morph that right now, but only to have a Destruction Staff ability on the bar to activate the Ancient Knowledge passive. Yeah, you can use like this. So we can stay ranged. This also has a pretty good range. As you can see, like Engulfing Flames still hit. We can play it like this, and when our Magicka drops low, we can just do heavy attacks. And also our Flames of Oblivion, you can see like it has a pretty big range. Now, like Engulfing Flames has a big range, Flames of Oblivion only, Burning Embers requires us to go a bit closer. But I would personally not play that defensively on the Magicka DK. It's just an option that you have. And with the Ancient Knowledge passive, you can put Force Shock there. But I don't really recommend that for experienced players, and experienced players can still go direct with 2 Inferno Staves on both bars. Anyway, what you also can do, which is really good for the last boss in the Halls of Fabrication, because you want to have high resistances, is put Hardened Armor here instead of the trap. That you need the stamina to block, and Hardened Armor will give you more resistances, so you have 18k spell resistance and almost 15k physical resistance, which is pretty nice. And you can play it that way, works pretty fine. However, I will stick with the Lightning Staff just for resource management. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for the skills. In Trash Fights, you can either use Shooting Star or like really go with the Elemental Rage ultimate, the Destruction Staff ultimate. Those are the options that you have for skills. Now to champion points. So I've been testing a lot of stuff out and using the Constellations add-on here. You can get it on PC. You can import combat metrics parsers and switch your stats up. Like you need to calculate how much spell penetration you have in a trial. Like consider things like Power of the Light. If you have Alkosh Crusher, how good is the Crusher uptime? Usually, like in Halls of Fabrication, it will be actually pretty low, and you might need to put more points into Spell Erosion. The CP setup that I'm about to show you is for sharpened staves. Like, it's not for precise. For precise, you might need to put more points into there. I still haven't figured out if I should take points out of Thaumaturge. So this is the CP setup that I got for sharpened staves from Constellations. So 15 points into Spell Erosion, 40 into Elfborn, which is 16%, 43 into Elemental Expert, 10%. Then I have 14 into Staff Expert, and 23 into Master at Arms, with 75 points into Thaumaturge. I gotta correct myself, this was not from Constellations, this is from Wöhler's CP tool, because I can force 75 points into Exploiter, like into Thaumaturge for the Exploiter passive, which we have here. Increases your damage done against off-balance enemies by 10%. You might not want to have these points here. Constellations recommended to take out points and only go with 51 here, and put the other points into Elfborn and Elemental Expert, like this. Like 51 here, 56, 15. Like, this is the CP distribution that Constellations recommended for me. You can see that, like, my direct damage over time effects, like, you can import combat metrics parsers, which is pretty nice. However, if you have precise staves like I do, you just go with the regular CP setup and put the points onto Spell Erosion. So you have like 39 here, 40 here, 43 there, 14 Staff Expert, 23 into Master at Arms. You could still like put even more points in there, take out the points from Staff Expert and put them into Spell Erosion, but it's totally up to you. But this is the trial CP setup that was calculated by Wöhler's CP tool for sharpened staves. For the green tree, we have 20 tumbling, 20 into shadowboard, 75 tenacity, 75 arcanist, and 20 into warlord. Pretty basic setup. You might want to take some points out of tumbling in the trial and put these points into warlord to get less cost for break free, because usually you don't dodge roll as much. Then we have like, is there a CP tree right here? Yeah, I have 51 here in Ironclad, 49 to Hardy, 49 Elmo Defender, 34 to Thick Skin, and 27 to Quick Recovery. You can also switch things up and just go 15 points here and put the rest into Thick Skin. It's up to you. I just need a little bit more recovery the last time. No, like the little bit more healing received the last time I played the DK. So, that's it for champion points. Let's talk about rotation. So, how does Magicka DK rotation works? Pretty much, it's actually pretty simple. We spend most of the time on the front bar. We try to reapply these 3 dots together. So, for a DPS test, how it would start would be, let me just get my trap here. So we start actually with putting down our eruption first. Then it's up to you how you want to play it. I usually go with trap first and then flames of oblivion. You could also go with flames of oblivion first and then cast the trap into bar swap. Doesn't really matter what you cast first, just cast one of these abilities into bar swap. Always go with eruption first. If you have your Standard of Might ready, cast the 3 and cast the Standard of Might into bar swap. On the front bar, you start with Engulfing Flames. I have seen people going with Burning Embers first, but I want a higher Engulfing Flames uptime to get more damage for the other players. So I go with Engulfing Flames first, then I go with Burning Embers, and then my Blockade of Fire, because it only lasts 8 seconds. Then I whip 6 times, and then I start again with Engulfing Flames, Burning Embers, Blockade of Fire into a bar swap, and then I recast these 3 dots again into a bar swap. Then I whip 3 times, and then I go with Flame Lash again. So it looks like this. So Eruption, Trap, Flames of Oblivion, Engulfing Flames, Burning Embers, Blockade, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Engulfing Flames, Burning Embers, Blockade into a bar swap, Flames of Oblivion, 1, 2, 3, Burning Engulfing Flames, Burning Embers, and your Blockade. And it goes like that all the time, the whole duration of the fight. You basically don't do anything else. Of course, you need to like calculate the weaving. If you are on console, you can track debuffs on the opponent, like Engulfing Flames and Burning Embers. There, you should be able to like track debuffs up here on the opponent with icons, and you can build your rotation around that. Always try to make sure like you recast these abilities together and these abilities together. Some people say like they only go with 4 whips or 5 whips, so they have a higher uptime on the Blockade. So you can see like my Blockade only runs out. And there's other people that say like I only recast Burning Embers and Engulfing Flames together, but also and then I recast my Blockade separately, which is hardly doable on console. But on PC we can do that with all the like because I like our we have buff trackers that track our ground dots, and that's why like some people just like go with like Blockade first and then Burning Embers and Engulfing Flames, and then they whip a couple times and go with this first and then they whip like 2 times again. Like that's how it would work if you separate your Engulfing Flames from Burning Embers. But the rotation that I showed you first is probably the more simpler way to cast it, because it's basically like three dots, 6 whips, 3 dots into bar swap, 3 dots in the back bar, 3 whips, then 3 dots, 6 whips again, and then 3 dots front bar, 3 dots back bar, 3 whips, 3 dots front bar, 6 whips. It's the same all over again. You can watch how this works, of course. Like I said, in the video description there's the link to Panadolek's DPS test. I will end the video now here because it's already been a lot of talking right now. I hope that you yeah, have any further questions, because like I'd like to to answer them in the comment section down below. And I also hope that you will have a lot of fun playing this build in dungeons and trials. I'm pretty sure Pana has a different CP setup, but Constellations and Riddler's CP setup, like they calculate it for every fight. So like if I just import that here, it will tell me how much magical damage over time I did, how much direct damage I did, how much direct damage I did with my staves. So CP setup will be different for every fight. So it's really hard for me to tell you like this is the CP setup that you should use, because it really depends on how often your abilities critically hit. You can see like it's only 42% on light attacks, but my flame lash critted for 71% here, just like these couple tries. Anyway guys, that's it for today. I hope you give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and leave a sub if you don't want to miss any more ESO content. Hope to see you next time again. So until then, bye bye.